Slap some bacon on a biscuit and let's go. We're burning daylight.
Welcome to the Frontier Freedom Hour with Jeff Hunt. Sponsored by Centennial Institute at Colorado Christian University. Now, here's Jeff Hunt.
Friends, welcome back to another great week of the Frontier Freedom Hour, sponsored by the Centennial Institute at Colorado Christian University. We're covering issues facing the Western United States from a Christian conservative perspective, and we're thankful we're not getting all the government we are paying for. On the board, as always, Michael Geronimo Arpaio, knocking it out of the park, doing a great job. Friends, we're going to dive into teachers' unions and how they relate to this kind of Palestinian-Israeli Hamas conflict. And guys, it doesn't end with the left. It just doesn't end. Article out in the City Journal by Rebecca Friedrichs. Unions for Palestine. Radicalized teachers are peddling anti-Israel propaganda to our kids. I know there's a lot of reasons to not like the teachers' unions, the state of education in America today, their corrupting influence in politics. But my goodness, when I read this article, it just got me going on how the woke mind virus just permeates all these institutions and teachers leading pro-Hamas, anti-Israel propaganda for our schools. Now, you probably saw this in the news this week about young people, this trend on TikTok embracing Osama bin Laden's letter to America from like 2002. Now, you may not know this, but today's college students weren't alive when 9/11 happened. It's one of the most shocking things I run into working at a university every year. For them, it was like the JFK assassination for me. I wasn't even alive. And so I don't have, connected feelings watching that unfold. And that's what's happening to our college students now. And you probably saw some of these TikTok videos. Fox has been talking about, Charlie Kirk on his show covered this as well. The idea that they're claiming that Osama bin Laden, the guy who orchestrated the greatest mass terrorist attack in American history, they're claiming that he's right. And you're just like, what in the world happened? How did we get here? Unions for Palestine. Joining me on the show is Rebecca Friedrichs. Rebecca is a 28-year public school teacher who was forced to fund state and national teachers unions whose politics and divisive tactics degraded her profession, our schools, and our national character. She was the one that led 10 teachers to sue California Teachers Association. It went all the way to the Supreme Court. It sought to free teachers from forced unionism. As I mentioned, it was argued before the Supreme Court in 2016, and she blazed the trail for ending forced unionism for teachers and all government employees. She continues that fight. Today, she's the author of Standing Up to Goliath, an expose on bully unions told through dozens of powerful personal accounts. She's a Prager University host and founder for Kids and Country, a national movement of citizens uniting to restore our school and culture. Rebecca, thanks so much for joining us. Why did you write this article, Unions for Palestine?
Well, first, it's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me. I wrote this article because many Americans are unaware that the root of every single problem in this nation, sexualized curricula, critical race theory, attacks on Israel and supporting what you just read, Osama bin Laden, all of this, the root issue is the government teacher union. People don't realize it. They think, oh my, that's a bunch of teachers. No, they're not. So the government, quote, teacher unions aren't really there for teachers. I taught 28 years. My husband taught 42 years. We were forced as a condition of employment to pay these unions. They have exploited teachers for decades, acting like they're teachers, acting like they're unions, and they're not. They're a bunch of radicals who hate America. They hate family. They want to destroy family, destroy our American free republic, And that's why they're behind all this nasty stuff. And so I will write anything when I see them, doing their diabolical behavior. I will write about it to expose it, to help people to understand what's really going on here.
You write in your article, 2 years ago, American Federation of Teachers affiliate, United Teachers of Los Angeles, backed a resolution condemning Israel. Around the same time, United Educators of San Francisco voted to support the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement against Israel, as did Seattle's public schools. So this has been at work for a while.
Yes, sir. Actually, the National Education Association was started in 1857, and they were not shy about the fact that they're socialists, and they've always been involved with the Democratic Socialists and the Communist Party, and so they have been pushing this stuff for decades. It's just very recently that their agenda is becoming more obvious to the American people. People are starting to wake up to it, and the unions are starting to get a little more bold and put it out there in writing, so that the average American can access that information. But yeah, they've been pushing this stuff for a very long time.
We're talking with Rebecca Friedrichs, who's the founder of For Kids and Country. So, gosh, Rebecca, I'm publicly school educated. I went to fine schools here in Colorado. And I remember I graduated high school in 2000. I remember seeing kind of the early days of kind of critical theory, primarily around Columbus. It was in our history classes. And, the idea that Columbus massacred a lot of people. He's this horrible guy. He brought, Europe to America and displaced a lot of people and created all these tragedies. So I remember that kind of sneaking in. But my parents generally didn't worry too much about the curriculum. They didn't worry too much about the teachers. They went to back to school night, but it was the 80s and 90s, and they just generally kind of trusted the teachers. What has happened? I mean, you mentioned that they kind of had socialists in their foundation going back to the 1800s, but it seems like from about the year 2000 to now 2023, so let's say the last 23, 25 years, it really has gotten very woke. What changed in your perspective?
Well, you're right about that in the last 20 years or so it's gotten much worse. But what I'd like to help your listeners to understand is, okay, if you want to undermine a free republic, you don't come out at the beginning and say, hello, everybody, we're here to undermine your free republic. We're here to destroy your schools and hurt your kids. You don't do that. You pretend like you're the good guy. So the unions, when they first came in, they had all of these plans. For instance, they are the ones who helped to change our schools from being more of a classical model and actually teaching children how to think and read classical books and learn the Greek and the Latin and phonics and all those things. It was the unions that worked to undermine that and to bring in the Prussian model. They did that in the 30s, the 1930s. They also removed phonics from our schools in the mid-1930s. And so when you start looking back at what our schools were like and how our students were doing pre-union takeover, you find out that, oh my goodness, perhaps Jeff and Rebecca did not get such a great education in the public schools. And you're younger than me. It sounds like you're about the age of my son, who got all that Columbus nonsense in the public schools. So the unions are pushing all that stuff. They just pushed it slowly. So when I was a kid, going to school in the 70s and the early 80s, I was getting the Planned Parenthood stuff, and I was getting some very washed down information about history. In fact, I got very little history, very little geography, had to learn a lot of it for myself. But if we went back in history into early America, we would discover that our students were learning more in a first grade through eighth grade education than we're getting at the university level now.
Wow.
So the unions have dumbed us down, and they have removed all kinds of great information, and so Americans don't even realize we're poorly educated at this point.
Right, like you get the sense that we're just dumber today than they were a long time ago. And you see it in some of the curriculum that was taught in single-room classrooms to kids, 200 years ago. They were reading more advanced things. They were being challenged more. They seemed brighter. They seemed better educated. And we look at it in the school boards today in the city of Denver, where they're not championing any type of great effort to improve math, improve reading, improving grammar. That doesn't seem to be their motivation. What they get really excited about and go out on Twitter and celebrate are, transgender bathroom access. Like, that's all it's really become, is just this kind of bizarre indoctrination camp where our kids come out. They're not really all that well educated, but they sure as heck believe in the leftist agenda. It's like the one thing that they come out with is like a really passionate commitment to hating Israel and supporting Hamas and thinking Osama bin Laden's all that great and all that. I mean, it is bizarre where we find ourselves right now.
It's worse than bizarre. It's diabolical, and it's dangerous to our free republic. So our founders told us something in their writings. They told us the only way to keep a free republic is with a well-educated, moral citizenry that can self-govern. So what are these people doing? Why are these nasty school board members on these school boards? Because the unions put them there. So what are they doing? They're trying to undermine education on purpose to make us stupid, so that tyrants can rule us, so that we can no longer be a free republic. So this is an existential threat to the United States of America, and it's being done on purpose. And the sooner people awaken to this, the sooner we can help teachers to understand, look, the unions are not your friend. You had these 10 brave teachers in California who fought for you. You no longer have to pay the unions. Most teachers don't know that. About 85% of them are still funding the unions, blindly thinking the unions are their savior. So they really are a big problem. And you're right, our schools have become a place to indoctrinate rather than educate.
Talking with Rebecca Friedrichs. We're going to continue this conversation when we return. You're listening to the Frontier Freedom Hour, sponsored by the Centennial Institute at Colorado Christian University. Stick around. We'll be right back after these messages.